Hello, my Bill 5000 Nation. How's everyone doing today? I am tired. Has anyone else out there ever woken up more tired than what they was when they went to bed last night? Because that is my day today. I am exhausted. I don't know why. But it's all about to turn around because we are here with a Mr. Ballin video. Alright, this one is titled NASA Engineer Claims Demon Attacked Him. The Bill Vaile Story. It caught my attention. That's all I can say. Told you, I'm in that let's get spooky kind of feel. It's getting too close to, that time of year. So let's go ahead and get into today's story. Go ahead and turn the mics down low. Put on something comfy, colorful, something special. Let's get spooky.
The primary criticism of virtually every paranormal story out there is a lack of credibility. Either the person claiming the events happened lacks credibility themselves.
Yes, very much so. That's why I kind of clicked on this one because it said NASA. You can't see behind me, but NASA engineer. I was like, you gotta believe NASA. I mean, right? They're truthful with us about the aliens and everything else they see. So why would they not be truthful with us over ghosts?
Or you just don't have any other corroborating evidence, like other people that witnessed it, other credible people that witnessed it, or in many cases, a lack of video or photo proof that said paranormal event happened.
Or you could have that video and photograph proof that was like shot on a potato, where like no matter how close you are to it or what year you took it, it just looks like a bunch of pixelated crap. Like literally, like the Bigfoot ones. Oh, no, it's Bigfoot. What kind of picture? No, how? It looks like you took a picture of like poo on the ground and then pixelated it.
In the case of the story today, you not only have a highly credible witness, a NASA robotics engineer, you also have other corroborating witnesses that are from that NASA engineer's family that were there and witnessed it with him. And you have, albeit limited, you do have video footage of what they are claiming happened that was paranormal. But before we get into all of that in today's story, if you are a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, well, that's what my channel is all about, and I upload 3 to 4 times a week. So if that's your thing, if you could gently pulverize the like button and then turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of my uploads every week. All right, let's get into it. Bill Vaile has always been incredibly scientifically minded. He's always had technical jobs his whole life. He took a job for 15 years at NASA as a robotics engineer. He also spent a little time as a pilot for NASA as well. He is just somebody that is very process-oriented. And in fact, his family and friends, they say this with respect, but they say that, Bill, he lacks an imagination. He's super pragmatic, super to the point, and doesn't really have time for, call it creativity. It's all about facts. In 2002, Bill and his wife separate, and it catches Bill a little bit off guard. And it almost prompts like a midlife crisis for him where, before it had been really his work with NASA that had been fulfilling to him. And now he has this huge gap in his life. And suddenly, he's looking around and he's like, what am I doing all this for? I don't have a family anymore. Like, what am I doing? And so he decides to move back home to Arlington, Texas, where his little brother lived. So when he gets to Arlington, he feels like he can have a fresh start in a way. He has family around, so he doesn't feel quite as lonely. And he actually just takes a job at his brother's water purification company because he wasn't sure what he was going to do. He just knew that he needed to do something. So he gets a job at this water purification company and he starts working with his brother. And he finds that even though it's not the same type of work that he was doing as a robotics engineer at NASA, it was nice to be working day in and day out with a family member. So Bill has only been living in Arlington for just a couple of months, and he had only been at the water purification company for maybe a couple of weeks. And so when a Saturday house call was called into the company and no one really wanted to do it, Bill thought, you know what, I'll take one for the team, make a good impression on my coworkers, and I'll take the house call. And what it involved is part of Bill's job was to go demonstrate how to install and use this water purification system in customers' home. The dispatcher for the water purification company said to Bill, she goes, "Hey, listen, this is a little bit weird, but the person who called was adamant that you be there at 5 o'clock, not a minute earlier, not a minute later." And it was probably only about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And he's like, "So what do I do?" And she's like, "I don't know, like go get a bite to eat and just make sure you're there by 5. And so he does that. He's like, "That's weird." But he drives around and he parks outside.
I mean, what would you say? Why 5? I mean, it could just be simple as that's when they go off work, they got other things to do. Or like right now, it's getting that time of year. It's like, okay, maybe you're getting drug into some kind of weird ass cult sacrificial bullshit. Oh,
Side of the house, a little ways down the street, and a couple minutes before 5, he gets out and he starts heading over to the property to do this house call. He starts walking up the path to this big brick house at like 4:59, and as he's getting closer to the steps, he can hear through the front door, which he can already tell it's slightly open, it's not latched all the way. He can hear screaming inside of this house. It sounds like a woman screaming, and it actually sounds like she's screaming, "Get out of here." But he doesn't really know what to make of it. He has a job to do, so he walks up to the door, and even though it's open, he knocks. And now he can literally hear through the crack in the door that someone in this house is screaming. And he's listening, and finally he decides, well, I should probably just open it up and make sure everything's okay, because I can hear someone screaming inside, the door's open. So he opens it up and he walks inside. He takes one step inside of the residence and just kind of peeks around, and he can see a little bit down the hall off to the right, there's an opening to a room. And in the room are 3 men on their knees in a little circle, and a woman is walking around them in a circle, and she's holding a book in her hand, and she's speaking in tongues. Just nonsensical, couldn't make sense of her language, but periodically as she's circling them and she's touching each of their heads.
Deuces. No. I would have threw the water purification system at the mofos and I would have left. No. Your water purification needs are not on the same level as me being possessed. You can yourself. I'm out.
She's screaming, "Get out of here. Leave these people. Get out of here." Bill is about to leave. He knows that this is just too weird for him, but right before he does, the woman who's walking around the 3 men on the ground looks up at him and points directly at him and doesn't break eye contact and just holds her finger out pointing at him. And he gets this very strange sense that like this woman wants to do harm to him. And so he just runs out the door and is like, yeah, I'm not going back in there. Goes back to his car and he calls the dispatcher back at the water purification company. And he's like, okay, I just took an insane house call. The lady in there is crazy. I'm not doing it. Don't reschedule. And if you do not put me on it because I will not go in there. Bill was a very straightforward guy. And he's just not going to let his imagination run wild with what they were doing. You know, those people are crazy and that's not my business. It's not my problem. And so he forgot about it. He just goes home to his house and he turns on the TV and he gets his microwave dinner and he's just sitting there eating his food and just having a nice Saturday night to himself, when out of the corner of his eye in his other room, and I keep in mind, Bill lives alone and has no pets. Out of the corner of his eye, he thinks he sees something small dart across the ground. He couldn't tell if it was flying through the room or if it was running through the room. But he just was like, oh, now I got, some rodent or a bird or something in my house.
You got Satan, bro. That woman gave you Satan. That's something you can't just wash off.
It must have snuck in through the chimney. And so Bill is not scared. He's mostly like frustrated.
Because he doesn't realize that it's not just a rat. Or it's not just a mouse, or it's not just a bat. It's a hell spawn now. Because this woman done did something she shouldn't have done did. I'm just saying, like, no. Nope. As soon as I would have heard the words "get out," I would have just turned around, walked back off that damn porch. I would have got back in my van. I would have called 911. I'd be damned if I would have walked up in there. No. Bunch of people in there screaming "get out," and I'm just going to stick my head in and find out. I respect that. I do. Don't get me wrong. You just saved someone's life. But now you got a demon. You're covered in Satan residue, bro, and Ajax don't bring that off.
Now he has to deal with some rodent in his house or some bird in his house. So he puts his food down and he turns on all the lights because he was watching TV with the lights off, turns on all the lights and just searches his house. He's like quiet, listening, trying to like hear where the thing went in his house. And he can't hear anything. And after over an hour, he just decides, well, geez, I don't know where it went. I don't know what it was. Maybe I didn't even see it in the first place. So that night, he wakes up suddenly to what feels like some small creature running over the foot of his bed, but like over his foot. And it instantly wakes him up and he instinctively sucks his legs up to his chest under his covers. You know, as pretty much anybody would do when some random creature is running on your feet in the middle of the night. And he's like, great, this thing, it's...
Hey, I'm sorry, I've never had a random creature run across my feet in the middle of the night, but I'm pretty sure if I did, I would be less concerned about pulling my feet up as I would be getting out of whatever the heck it is I'm in. And it's at, like, no, if something runs across me while I'm asleep, I'm jumping up. I know.
Probably now you can tell it's a rat, it's a rodent. He's like, great, now it's literally in my bedroom on my bed. And so he flips on the lights, and now he's just mad because this is right in the middle of the night. It's the last thing he needs. And he lights on and he searches the room. He looks under, his dresser. He looks in the closet. He looks under his bed. He looks everywhere. And he can't find this thing. He's stopping periodically to listen, and he can't hear scurrying or anything. Did I imagine that as well? Because, I guess I don't know if I saw something darting out of the corner of my eye when I was watching TV. I think I did. And just now, could that have been in my dream? Because he wasn't really awake for it happening. He woke up to it and thought it's what happened. And so he's starting to tell himself that, you know what? I'm somehow
trying to justify everything I said. Oh, I love it when people do that. It's like, nah, I didn't see someone just murder 12 people in front of me. I gotta be asleep. It's like, no, bro, you did. Like, that's a Satan rat. No. It's what you
creating this weird thought in my head. Like, I probably didn't see anything downstairs, and I was probably having a dream about this, rodent in my house, and that's what prompted the thought that something had touched my feet. And so he's like, all right, whatever. Turns off his lights and he goes back to bed. So Bill falls back asleep, but shortly thereafter, he wakes up again when his bed is violently shaking. And he wakes up and his bed's shaking, and it stops almost immediately once he's awake. And he thinks that they're having an earthquake. So he jumps out of his bed and he's looking around to see if things are going to start falling on him. He runs to the window. He looks outside. He can't tell what's going on. He runs into the other room, and he can suddenly tell, because he's in a bit of a panic, that there is no more shaking happening. Now, the shaking's done. The house is totally silent. And he runs back to his bed, and he has this thought, like, could I in my sleep have shaken my bed? And he had one of those huge 4-poster beds, and he's trying to move it, and Bill's a big strong guy and he can barely move his bed, and he has this memory of, my bed was literally shaking. And he's like, now this is 3 times that something strange has happened and I can't make sense of it. And being a very kind of pragmatic person, and not one with, as his family said, a wild imagination, he did not have that. He's like, okay, let's find out if there was an earthquake. So he goes online and he starts researching earthquakes. And he's thinking maybe if the earthquake had just happened, that the news would break right then and there, some headline. There's nothing. And so he's like, okay, what other rational things could have caused my house to shake? Because again, there's no other damage in his house. Nothing fell. It was just, he felt the shaking and that was it. And so he starts researching what's in the area, and he finds that there was a military base, and actually it's an air base right near his house, a couple miles away. And he's thinking, okay, well, when the fighter jets are taking off, that take off at all hours, maybe there's a sonic boom from one of the jets accelerating. And he didn't know if that was it, but he thought it could be it. And then he's like, oh, well, there's also all these...
It sounds like he's just reaching, grabbing for whatever he can grab for.
Oil rigs that are drilling in the area. Maybe there was an accident, so he's researching for recent accidents at oil rigs, and he's trying to find a rational explanation for this bed shaking incident. He also can't help but feel like, what happened with that thing I saw?
And no matter how much he's going to try to rationalize it, it's not going to play out in his favor. I hate to say it, he's just not going to.
that was like touching my feet. Like he's not connecting the two events, but he has this weird sense that either something's wrong with him and he's losing his mind, or something really weird is happening in his property. So as he's trying,
that's always a good possibility. I mean, we all lose our minds. Ain't like we know when we do it, or we wouldn't be losing it.
to find this rational explanation, his internet goes out. And so he tries troubleshooting it a couple times, but he can't get it to work. And so he calls his service provider to just have them see if they can fix it. And so he calls customer service, somebody picks up, and they're like, yep, your internet's out, let me fix it for you. Let me put you on a brief hold. And so they put him on hold, and as he's sitting there like listening to elevator music, like staticky sound started coming through the receiver, and he's just noticing it. It's nothing significant. But then a voice comes into the phone that is speaking in tongues, like nonsensical language, and it sounds almost threatening. At some point, Bill is just totally unsettled by this voice because it's just going on and on. He's been on hold now for like 2 minutes of this weird voice. He just hangs up. And like in just a couple of seconds, he gets a call back from the same customer service rep that he had just been speaking to. And he had an accent, and Bill picked up on it and said, hey, was I just talking to you? And the customer service rep was like, yes, sorry, we got disconnected. And Bill says, did you hear that voice? Did you hear that strange voice on the phone? And the customer service rep, who's mostly operates on a bit of a script, kind of deviates for a second and says, actually, yes, I did hear that. And I was actually trying to figure out how that could have been possible, because we use a very secure phone line when we talk to our customers, and there's really no way for someone to actually block my ability to speak to you. Like, even if someone was on the call, you would still be able to hear me, and I was trying to yell to you and you weren't hearing me. So I don't know how that would have happened, but I definitely heard the voice. I don't know what that was, and we're so sorry. So both of them are definitely weirded out by it, but you know, the customer service rep, he's got a job to do, and he's like, hey, your internet works again, thanks, talk to you soon. He hangs up, and Bill's left with his internet working again, but now that's the fourth strange thing. He has the thing that runs across the room as he's watching TV. He has the thing that ran across his feet at night. He has his bed shaking, and now he has this.
Sorry, it gave me goosebumps. Like, no, fuck that. I'm glad I don't like to use phones just in general, because I'd be scared to have to hear something like that. No, sir. You got a demon rat running through your house. Your bed is shaking violently. You big dude, you can't move it yourself. So that rat has got some mythical, magical powers in by. And now the demon rat is talking to you on the phone, on a secure line. I wouldn't trust on it. I'd be, nope.
Like devil voice speaking in tongues on the phone that the customer service rep also heard and couldn't make sense of. He decides to, you know, I'm done doing research for the night. It's, 3 in the morning or whatever it was. I'm going to just try to get a couple hours of sleep.
He's done freaked himself the hell out. He's not going to get no sleep. He ain't getting shit.
Because this is just starting to freak me out a little bit. So Bill gets back in his bed and he's trying to sleep, but he can't stop thinking about the fact that there have been 4 strange occurrences in the span of just a couple of hours. And
I told you, he just full ain't getting no sleep. Nah, don't play that shit with me.
And he can't help himself but start to feel a little bit worried that something that he doesn't understand is going on. Something bad is going on. And as he's sitting there desperately trying to sleep, he swears he can hear some sort of sound underneath his bed. He knows it could be his mind playing tricks on him, but it doesn't matter. He thinks he hears it, and it's now he's officially spooked. Like a child, he pulls the covers over his head, and he's just laying on his bed with the covers over his head, just basically trying to convince himself, like, this isn't happening. There isn't anything under your bed. Just relax. Nothing's happening. He's got his legs sucked up, up near his chest. He's just under his sheets. And the way he was positioned is he had left a light on in his room, and there was a light basically beaming down onto the sheet that was over the upper part of his body. So there's a little bit of light into the cavern under his sheets. And so he's holding it up over his head, and as he's sitting there, like trying to tell himself that nothing's going on, he looks down towards the foot of his bed, under his covers, right? And he sees a hand slowly reaching up from the side of the bed, come up and try to grab his foot, and it just misses and then retracts out from under the bed. Bill literally leaps out of bed, flips on every light, and is now in just absolute crisis mode. He immediately is like, oh.
I would have shit everywhere. I would have been shit the bed Fred right there. No.
Up against the wall, doesn't even want to look under the bed, but eventually he does. He kind of pokes under, nothing's down there. He looks around his room, there's no sign of anybody.
I've been out. Nope. I would have burnt that damn house down on my way out the door. No. No. There is not going to be a bed with a hand under trying to eat my feet. Matching the gas tank, boom, boom.
In the room, and now it's like, okay, you've had so many strange occurrences, and none of it makes sense. Like, what are you going to do? And he had no idea. So Bill does not attempt to go back to bed that night. He goes downstairs, flips on every light in his house, starts drinking coffee like he's awake. He's like, I'm not doing this tonight. And so he stays up the rest of the night. So the next day, Bill just tries to
house be looking like a rave. Whoa!
Have a normal day. He doesn't want to think about what happened the night before. So he goes to work like normal, doesn't tell anybody about it. Again, Bill, he's a straight shooter. He's not about to be, the former NASA robotics engineer. It's like, hey, let me tell you about the paranormal stuff that's happening in my house. He's doing everything he can to not think like that.
You don't want to be that guy.
And so by the end of the day, he started to feel a little bit of anxiety as he's getting ready to go back to his house, because he would have to potentially face some of the strange things that happened the night before. They could happen again tonight. And so he gets home, has all his lights on. He's not about to keep his lights off, and he's sitting in his chair.
He ain't taking no chance tonight. I'm eating my TV dinner in the daylight. It's like middle of the dark. Nope. Not my house. There's spotlights everywhere. This poor guy.
He always sits in the same one where he was watching TV and saw that thing dart across the room. He's sitting there and he's eating his microwave dinner and he's watching TV. Again, all the lights on in his house. And
I was just kidding when I said TV dinner. It really was TV dinner. Oh shit, he's gonna die. Well, this last meal's gonna be a TV dinner. Oh shit. Oh no, that'd be horrible. Get eaten by a demon. All you got in your belly is like kind of burnt, kind of frozen chicken.
And he looks down for a minute to get another bite of food, and when he looks up, a bottle is zinging towards him, and he moves his head out of the way, and it hits the wall beside him, and it breaks. It's a glass bottle and shatters on the ground. And then all the lights in the house go out. So Bill runs to the closet where he knows he has a flashlight. He opens it up, reaches for the flashlight, and as he's about to pull it out, he hears in the closet, towards the top of the closet, this loud slamming sound. And he had a couple pretty heavy boxes on the very top shelf in his closet, and it sounded like someone had almost lifted one up and then slammed it down on the top shelf. But obviously he didn't do that, and it totally freaked him out. He grabs the flashlight, shines it in the closet. There's no one in there. There's nothing in there. And he backs out, and then the lights come back on. And his heart's racing because he knows what just happened. Someone just threw a bottle at his head. Someone just slammed something in his closet, and he's in full panic mode. Mm-hmm. So the only person he can think to call is his brother, because he's not
Ghostbusters. Something strange. I mean, I don't know if I would want to call. Okay, here's my thing on it. I'm not going to call Jack. I ain't calling another family to come in there and potentially take that with them. No. That's awful. Oh, God. Freaking demon rats.
Prepared to go to the police because the things he would need to describe are kind of nonsensical sounding. But his brother, who's very rational, equally kind of pragmatic in his approach to everything, he calls his brother and he's like, get over here. I got some weird stuff happening in my house and I just need a sanity check. And so his brother, Bob, his younger brother, Bob, he comes over. And as soon as Bob gets there, Bill is like, he had never had a discussion about
I like that. I need a sanity check.
The paranormal with his brother before. So he's just like, all right, this is going to sound weird, but Bob, I need you to just go in this closet and just go in the closet. And Bob's like, what in the world are you talking about? And Bill's like, please, just go in there. I'm going to shut the door and I want you to just tell me what happens. And so Bob's like, all right. Bob goes in the closet. Bill shuts the door behind him. Bill's just out there waiting. And Bill calls to Bob, hey, turn off the light. There's a little pull string, little tiny light bulb. Turn off the light in there. So, Bob's like, all right, turns off the light, and it's pitch black in there. And so at the time, Bob would not tell Bill what happened to him in the closet. Mostly because if you put yourself in Bob's position, he doesn't have any of the context. He doesn't have anything that happened. He's never experienced anything like this before. And so,
did he get 7 minutes in heaven by the demon rat? Poor Bob. No, Bob. No, not that way. No, Bob. No, Bob. Poor Bob.
What he experiences, he kind of chalks up to probably his own doing. He doesn't think that someone did it to him. And so what happens is he's in the closet and he feels something hit his leg. And he thinks, oh, I must have knocked into something that hit my leg, like a pair of shoes or something. And he's just standing there. And then something hits him hard in the face. And he thinks, oh, I must have hit something on the top shelf that fell and hit me in the head. But the two things combined, it did unsettle him a little bit, and he consciously decided, I'm not going to tell my brother Bill that this happened because I'll only feed into his own paranoia right now, and that's not what he needs. Opens the closet, gets out, and he's like, you know what, Bill? Nothing happened in there. There's nothing to worry about. There's nothing in here. And so he leaves, and Bill is left kind of crestfallen because he feels like he really didn't do a good job conveying to his brother just how much had happened in the house so far. He basically said, I've heard some strange noises, go in the closet. And then nothing really happened. So he feels like out of his element. He just feels like he doesn't know how to handle it. And so he has only one other person that he feels comfortable kind of letting in to this situation because it was just kind of embarrassing for Bill. I mean, he's this esteemed NASA employee. The last thing he wants is to have somebody think that he's like losing his mind a little bit. But he has his friend Michael, who is a sound engineer that works for a couple podcasts. And when he calls him, Bill doesn't even really know what he's going to say to Michael. He just needed to talk to someone, like a friendly voice kind of thing. And he calls him, and Michael's a little bit surprised to see Bill calling him, and they have a little bit of small talk. And Bill says to Michael, I don't know how to approach this with you, but I moved to Arlington, and I got some weird stuff going on in my house, and I guess I'm just telling you because I don't know what else to do. And so Michael's like a little bit caught off guard and is a little bit just worried about his friend. And he starts asking him some basic questions. Just, oh, well, what have you heard? Like, what have you seen? Just not really sure if it's even remotely worth exploring, but just asking some basic questions. And as they're having this exchange, the voice that came on the phone during the call to the customer service rep for the internet provider came on the phone. And all of a sudden, Bill...
Well, my thing is the voice that we're hearing that comes through on the phone, is it Mr. Baldwin? Like, I know he does do that. He throws himself in there with his voiceovers and stuff. I'm just saying.
Can't hear Michael, and Michael can't hear Bill. All they both hear is this voice, this like angry kind of demonic sounding voice that sounds very threatening. And so while this is going on,
that was such a creepy picture.
And Michael just instinctively is like, well, I have all my sound set up here, and he grabs a mic and he puts it to the receiver and starts recording. And for a minute and a half, he sits there recording this voice. And then about 30 seconds into the recording, not that Michael could hear it, Bill on the other end, who's heard this voice before, and he's starting to get the feeling that this whole thing is bad. Like, it's bad. And he starts yelling to Michael to hang up. Don't listen to this. Hang up the phone. Don't listen to the voice. He's yelling for him. And then after about a minute and a half of this chaos that Michael's recording, the voice suddenly stops. And it goes back to Bill and Michael talking to each other. And it's like crystal clear. And so Michael immediately says, hey, Bill, you there? You there? And Bill's like, yeah, I'm here. I was trying to get you to get off the phone. You can't listen to this stuff. I don't know what it is, but it's bad. And Michael just goes, no, listen, I recorded that. Here, let me play it back for you. And so he starts playing it back, and it's silence. Except for when Bill was yelling to Michael, don't listen to it. Hang up, don't listen to it. And Michael is yelling in the beginning to Bill like, hey, what is that? What is this? But then it's all silence in between. So they aren't speaking to each other, even though they're on the phone with each other. And they hear something, but the recording only picked up.
It's giving me the goosey bumpies all over the damn place. What the fuck?
Their voices, not the demonic, possessed sounding voice. At this point, Bill is starting to get a little bit scared. Maybe he wouldn't admit to it, but he's alone in this
Don't let Bill lie to you. Bill was shitting himself at that moment.
house, and all this strange stuff is happening. And he just decides that he's going to invite his brother over for dinner. And Bill is in the chair that he always sits in, and Bob and his wife Cindy are on the couch, and they're kind of having a nice time. Bill recalled feeling, it was just nice to have other people in the house. And they're watching TV, and as they're watching TV, suddenly Bill just stands up and kind of runs over to the room where he had originally seen that thing dart by, this rodent or whatever he saw. And Bob and Cindy obviously see him get up and run over, and they're like, hey, what did you see? What was that? And Bill's like, okay, I don't know how to describe what I saw, but I saw this thing that's in my house. And, Bob, I brought you over here because I've just been seeing this animal or something running around my house, and I swear I just saw it. I swear I just saw it. And he goes, hey, look, Bob, sit in my chair, because it was the only vantage point into this room. The couch where Bob and Cindy were sitting, they couldn't really see into this room. And he goes, just listen to me. Bob, sit in my seat and just sit here and just watch the TV. Don't pay attention to the room. Just watch the TV and just see if...
This has to be killing Bill, though. I mean, he is a person of logic. This is so unlogical to him that it has to be killing him mentally on the inside. Yeah.
Something catches your eye, because maybe I'm seeing something that is totally rational, but something's happening. Just do what I was doing. And so Bob's like, all right. So he sits in the chair. Bill sits next to Cindy, and they start watching TV again. And Bob all of a sudden just clearly reacts to seeing something in the other room, and he goes, oh my God, what is that? And they all stand up, and Bill is like, well, what'd you see? And Bob's like, I don't know. It was like some kind of small animal or something, and it looked like it was on 2 feet. It did not look like a 4-legged animal. That's like a 2-legged animal. Like, what was that? And so Bob, he's now feeling like, I was in that closet, some weird stuff happened that I didn't tell Bill about. Now this, and he's like, okay, Cindy, his wife, Cindy, you sit in the seat. You do this now. And so now Bill and Bob are sitting on the couch watching Cindy, and Cindy's watching the TV. Of course, in just a matter of minutes, she sees something dart across the room. Now, was she just kind of jumping on the bandwagon because these two saw it? Maybe. But she certainly described the same thing that Bill and Bob claimed to have seen, which was a bipedal small creature that was just running through the dining room. And so the three of them turn on all the lights and they start searching the house. They're going to find this animal or thing in the house, and they search everywhere for hours and they can't find anything. Finally, after it's getting late, Bob and Cindy are like, hey, Bill, I don't know what's happening in your house, but why don't you just come stay with us? We got a guest room. Just crash with us tonight, and you can come back in the morning and call animal control or whatever you want to do, but just, you shouldn't be here tonight. There's too many weird things happening here. Bill, in a way, was actually kind of happy because now he had someone that he trusted and loved, his own family, that had confirmed that they were seeing the same things he was. That even though that is terrifying, that all of a sudden Bill is alone in this house with some creature, this small bipedal creature running around the house, at least he wasn't losing his mind. Or if he was, at least other people were too. So he was kind of relieved, and he was like, you know what?
If we go crazy, we go crazy together.
But I'm not going to go with you because I don't want to just give up my house. What will I do when I come back if it keeps happening? I don't want to just give this up. So Bob and Cindy leave, and now Bill is determined to now, for the first time, start looking up paranormal explanations for what was happening. So quickly, Bill realizes that you can't just search.
You don't want to, bud. You start searching that kind of shit, it's like getting on WebMD. It gets bad.
Search the paranormal. There's too many things online. It's so hard to tell what is considered credible and what isn't, because there's just no fact checking going on. It's just people kind of putting things on the internet. And so what he decided he would do is, instead of him doing the research, he would find a paranormal investigative team that at least appeared to approach their investigations much the way a scientist would. That instead of looking for proof, the paranormal exists, Instead, that their approach would be like looking for an answer, even if that answer was totally normal. And so he starts researching for investigative paranormal teams that have a scientific focus that are in Texas in the area. And he actually finds one and he reaches out to them, and they were actually available that night to come over. So he says, please come over, I need your help. So the leader of the paranormal team was a man by the name of Brian Hall. And when they get there, it's Brian and a couple of his crew members. They don't start with, diving into the paranormal investigation side. They start by looking for obvious answers, because they've found that many times when someone claims they have a paranormal event happening, it's something like, a bad AC unit or a creaky door or a branch outside that's rubbing against the house. Yep. And so they did a very lengthy and thorough examination of the outside and inside of the house, looking for things like that. And they determined that there wasn't anything obvious that was a rational explanation. So now it warranted setting up some equipment. Shit. And so what they did is they set up a couple of cameras in Bill.
I bet Bill's just sitting there like, damn it, why couldn't it have been a tree limb? Son of a bitch.
Bedroom where a lot of the activities apparently was happening. And they set up these laser beams that basically beamed lasers in every direction, and they would place them in his bedroom. So there was like laser beams all over the room. And if anything walked past any of these lasers, you would see the beams move, and it's very obvious. So it's a way to detect motion in the room. And so they set these beams up and they start filming, and for a long time, nothing is happening.
Probably an Xbox Connect. Those things work amazing.
Happening. Bill, Brian Hall, the team are just sitting in the dining room downstairs, just like listening to silence and watching nothing happen. And so Brian suggests, hey, why don't one of his team members go up and just literally interact with the room a little bit? Go in there, kind of like yell, do something, kind of stir it up, so to speak. And then we'll see if anything happens. And so one of the team members goes up to the room and walks in and is like, hey, is anybody in here? And, nothing's happening. You can see on the footage that, he jumps onto the bed and he's sitting on the bed. And at some point, as he's yelling out to whatever was in the room, like, hey, if you're in here, show yourself, all of a sudden.
Oh, that was actual footage? Oh, shit.
On camera, you hear a laser fall. And he jumps out of bed and he runs out of the room. And the rest of the team comes up and they gather up the cameras and they immediately watch the footage. And as they're watching the footage, you can see this mist that begins to form in the room that the team member who was in there just didn't see. And the mist starts swirling in front of the laser beams on the camera before you hear off camera one of the laser beams falling to the ground. So at first they're just kind of dumbfounded and they're like, well, how did the mist get in there? Like, what is that? And is it possible that perhaps the laser beam rolled off a table or something? Maybe it was positioned in such a way that it could have rolled off. And so what they did is they raised the sound levels inside of the actual video, and they made out a couple of words. And so at this point, Brian Hall and his team feel like they have quite a bit of data that actually does lend credibility to the idea that there is something paranormal happening in Bill's house. So as they're packing up to leave, they say to Bill, like, you gotta go. You can't be here. Like, I'm surprised you're still here now. And Bill just was this super prideful guy, and he just was like, no, I'm gonna stay. Like, I've made the decision. I'm not gonna run. I'm gonna stay here in this house. And they're like, that's a bad idea. And honestly, they were right, because some pretty horrible stuff happens after they leave. So that night, he knows he's not gonna sleep. So he has all his lights on in his bedroom. He's sitting with his knees tucked up to his chin. He has upbeat music, like classical music, but very upbeat music playing on the radio right next to his bedside. And he's just trying to like kind of create good vibes in his room. And so as he's sitting there, he hears what sounds like a Mack truck smashing into the side of his house. Like, it was so loud and just deafening that he instantly sprints out of his door, runs downstairs, runs outside to like inspect the damage to his property. And nothing's outside. There's nothing. There's no Mack truck. There's no damage to his house. There's nothing. He walks all around his property. He's like, did something fall in the street? Am I losing my mind? Like, what's going on? And so he goes back in the house after quite a bit of looking around, seeing if something might have fallen off of his roof that made a sound. Nothing. He goes back in his house, and as soon as he steps foot in his house, he hears a similarly loud crashing sound, as if, a vehicle is smashing into his house. except it's inside of his house, in his dining room. It was in the same room where he first initially spotted that thing running across the ground. And so he runs in there to look for some.
You stand at the door, you flip it all off, you turn around, and you walk the fuck away. I'm sorry. I don't care how prideful you are. Pride is no match for some little demon rat that runs around on two legs. If it can sound like a damn car coming through your house, you don't want to fuck with that. I'm sorry. Like, I'm over here like goosebumps from hell and back because I'm scared shitless on what this idiot's going to do when he gets in there and gets killed by the demon. It's like, oh, run, Bill, run.
Horrible damage to the inside of his house, but there's nothing disturbed. There's nothing shaking. There's nothing out of place. His dining room is intact. And as he's sitting there, he hears his car alarm go off outside. And now he's thinking, this thing is screwing with me. I'm not going to let it win. I've stayed here against better judgment for multiple days. I'm not going to give in now. And so Bill kind of goes into fight mode. Now he's mad. And he's, instead of being scared of
punch the demon rat in his face, Bill. You do that, bud.
what's happening, he starts screaming at the top of his lungs, like, show yourself. And so as he's doing that, he hears yet another loud crashing sound up in his bedroom. And so he runs upstairs, ready to, fight.
That demon about to show you another side you ain't never seen before.
With whatever this is in his house, because it's gotten to a breaking point for Bill. He charges in his room. There's nothing in there. But unlike the dining room, and unlike when he was outside, the crashing sound continues while he's in the bedroom. So he's standing in his bedroom, holding his ears from the deafening crashing sounds over and over and over again, but there's nothing moving. There is no way for the sound to be emanating from that room, but it is. And after what feels like an eternity of this horrible smashing sound, it just completely stops. And it's dead silence. And Bill lifts his hands off his ears and he's looking around and he's expecting it to start again, but it doesn't. And it's just dead silence in the entire house. After quite a while, and he still doesn't hear anything, he gets back in his bed. All the lights are on. His radio's on. And he tucks his legs up to his chin and he's just holding himself basically in the fetal position. And he is, at this point, he's now just petrified. He had his big fight moment, but I think he's now thinking that this thing was just challenging me back. It's basically saying, I can do whatever I want to you, and you can't touch me. I can do whatever I want, you can't touch me. And he's realizing that maybe he could have made it worse. And he's sitting there knowing he's not going to sleep. It's still the middle of the night. And he starts hearing a noise that sounds like maybe shuffling of feet. Something's moving around underneath his bed. And as he's sitting on his bed, at the head of his bed near his pillow with his feet tucked in, he looks at the foot of his bed, and this huge, just wide, 6-foot-tall black figure emerges it's bright in the room. This black figure emerges at the foot of his bed. It's got this huge tooth coming out of its mouth, and it gets into this jerky position and starts moving towards Bill. And it gets right in front of him, and it puts its face right against Bill's, and then grunts, and then disappears. Bill continued to see this horrible black figure in his house, and it continued to kind of challenge Bill, and Bill stopped challenging it back. And so Bill started waking up with these scratches on his chest. He was hospitalized a couple of times, prompting the hospital to do welfare checks on Bill because he was showing up with these mini heart attacks because of the stress that he claimed was from having this stuff happening to him. And his family's so concerned. And it wasn't until Bill started really doing some aggressive research on demons that he read about exorcisms. And he remembered that when he showed up for that house call, a lot of the language that he was hearing coming from that woman who was screaming, leave these people, leave this house, it sounded like an exorcism. And he was thinking that, do you think it's possible that the exorcist knew that she needed another host for these demons? And so she planned it so that she would have this water purification person show up right at 5 p.m. so that she could be at the part of her exorcism where she could cast the demons onto him. After two...
I'd hunt her down and I'd punch her in the face. She would repetitively get punched in the face until she took that demon and gave it to her own damn self. Nope. Homie, don't play them games. Mm-mm. You just stuck a demon with me? No. We are not friends. We are sworn enemies. No, no.
Exorcisms of his own to his house, it still hasn't stopped. He's still to this day is dealing with the paranormal activity in his house. And when asked why he hasn't sold his house, is he thinks that he couldn't live with himself if he ever put another person through what he has dealt with at his house. I don't know about you, but I would not have lived in that house for an additional 18 years. That just sounds like the worst. But I'm not Bill, and so he's made up his mind that that's what he needs to do. But for me, anyways, I would have left that house. I would have abandoned that house more than likely. But I'd love to hear what you would do in that situation.
I would burn the mofo down with everything in it. And I would sit there and I would roast marshmallows over the embers as it burnt. And then I would salt everything so nothing would ever grow again, and I would walk away.
And I'd love to just get your feedback on the story. It's interesting when you have a story like this coming from the mouth of someone so credible, like a NASA robotics engineer who's inherently skeptical, and having lots of corroborating evidence. I'd love to hear what you all think about this particular story and whether you think this is true or just something else that's totally rational and easy to explain. Love to hear in the comments. That's going to do it, guys. Before you go, if you want to get in touch,
I firmly believe that that lady probably did do that. I mean, to be there at 5 o'clock exactly. I mean, this could just be a whole made up story. No one really knows. But that does sound plausible. Like, what better way to get rid of something than to give it to someone else? They always say the best way to get over a cold is to give it to someone else. I'm sure it's that way with demons. I don't know. I don't know. I've watched The Conjuring. I know what's what. Oh shit. I don't know. That I wouldn't have stayed there no damn 18 years, that's for sure though. I would have burnt that son of a bitch down. Mm. Alright. That was good. I like that. That was an amazing story. If y'all like that story as much as I did, please leave a thumbs up. If you're a fan of the spooky, scary, strange, or deranged, think about subscribing. Oh, that's gonna do it for me. I'm gonna go and cry ever so tenderly into my pillow. That's all I can think of right now. All right. Yeah, that we done covered everything. Yeah, we out of here. So as always, be good to one another. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye. Mofo should have stayed at NASA. You wouldn't be having that problem. See what purified water brings you? Demons.